Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2018 Spy Party Summer Cup. This is my ghetto put together of a broadcast last minute. Hopefully it goes well. You know me, I'm Dowsey. I'm joined by the beautiful Warning Tracker as always to bring some of tonight's games. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing okay, especially having been called beautiful. That really catches me off guard, but it's lovely. I'm the beautiful warning track. You are the lovely Dowsy. How about that?
I'll take it. I mean, lovely is an adjective that I think not many people would turn down. That's for sure. But yeah, we're doing Summer Cup, which is pretty exciting. All things Spy Party competitive is exciting to me, being a Steam generation user. But for you, you've been here for a little bit, so I mean, maybe you should talk to me through what Summer Cup is.
Yeah, well, originally it was before SCL, actually. This started back in 2013. I think I'd been around for just about a year at the time. And competitive events in Spy Party back then were few and far between, maybe one or two a year. A smaller community, usually just done for fun, sort of just something to give the beta game structure, right? Keep people playing, keep people interested. So in the early days, you'd get a lot of participation. I think Crazy Kaylee won it in 2013, for example. Magician, another Diamond player in 2014 over Canadian Bacon, who is in this year's SCL finals, of course. But as SCL became a thing, people realized that the only time you could get all those SCL matches in was to make sure they weren't near any major holidays, which means the summer. So the Summer Cup started being scheduled just after the SCL. So what it ended up happening is it became sort of a way for the SCL competitors to take a break, and for a lot of kind of intermediate players or even borderline expert players to sort of step in and have a chance to shine. That started around 2016 when the much newer peers beat Bloom at the time. Both of them maybe a little sub-elite at the time, although became elite very quickly afterwards. And then Yeesh won it last year over Pwn Noob. And the same thing is sort of happening here. SCL still going or winding down for some. So the Summer Cup has been like a nice little way to transition between the SCL and the holiday season.
No, and it's really exciting because, like you mentioned, Yeesh won it last year against Pwn Noob in the final of the 2017 Summer Cup finals. And then he went on a competitive break because he had his basic military training, I believe, that he had to go complete. So he hasn't competed whatsoever during SCL 4. And so this is him coming back after winning Summer Cup 2017. He's back to defend his title in Summer Cup 2018. And I think there's a lot of people who have competed, I guess, in the previous season of SCL, who are new to Spy Party competitive and haven't quite met Yeesh yet. So this is a pretty good time for a lot of people to kind of meet. I think one of the upcoming players that was really hitting the competitive scene back last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I like about this. If you follow sports at all, they have something in a lot of sports, particularly baseball, called the Futures Game, where they have a lot of very young players play a day before the All-Star Game, I think it is, to sort of showcase up-and-coming talent. I like to sort of become that. I mean, there's obviously some very good players here. Yush is not, a futures guy. He's not a newcomer. But I like that it's sort of a precursor to maybe what we're going to see the next SCL season. You see someone like Yeesh do really well in last year's Summer Cup. And he's certainly become a force to be reckoned with in SCL as well. That certainly happened with Piers in 2016, who dominated in SCL shortly after his Summer Cup win. So I like that it's sort of a preview, almost like a farm system kind of thing. And I'm glad you mentioned Yeesh winning last year because he's, as you said, he's competing again this year. He has the chance to become the first person to repeat in Summer Cup and only the second person to win more than once. Kaylee won the first and third year, but not the second. So no one's done it yet, and Yeesh is definitely one of the favorites this year to get it done.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the format for Summer Cup. It basically mirrors a FIFA World Cup, so football, soccer, depending on where you're from, format. You have the group stages, which are split into 8 groups of 4 opponents each. And during those group stages, you play a round robin, so you play 3 matches. And then you move into the knockout stages, and then towards the finals. Now, the thing about Summer Cup, which kind of separates itself from SCL, is that the maps are chosen for you. They are rotated based on what stage of the tournament you're at. So we're playing in the group stages for now, and the current map pool is Ballroom, Courtyard, Library, and crowded pub, which is 16 guest pub with any 4 of 7 missions. And every component, every opponent, every competitor in the Summer Cup will play 1 round on each of those maps, so an 8-game series. And then at the end of the series, they will submit their score. And like football, and the World Cup in football, your point differential will kind of carry you forward if there's any tiebreakers at the end of the group stages.
Yeah, I really like the 2-tiered structure here because obviously the group stages matter a lot, but in the end, you still play a tournament. So, you get rewarded if you play well here, but it's also not, something that can totally ruin you. You get a chance at the end. And as you mentioned, a preset map pool, obviously trying to get a bit of a cross section there with ballroom, courtyard, library, and pub. Doesn't have any of the Softel variant maps. That's the only notable omission. But other than that, you get a nice mix.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be jumping into our first game of tonight, which is from Group A, starting things off with Yeesh and dbdkmezz. Do we get a pronunciation for DBD? I'm probably just going to call him DBD. I'm not going to lie.
Let's play it safe. Yeah.
Play it safe. For those wondering, Group A has some other opponents in it. Lazy Bear and Basehead from the Challenger series are also competing in Group A. But we thought we would kick things off with the previous Summer Cup champion playing his first Summer Cup match this season. So let's jump over to SpyParty and get this one rolling.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, all loaded up. I need to make sure I've got my scoreboard going. I've got the SCL badges next to people, just so you guys kind of get an idea of their competitive skills here. One thing that Summer Cup definitely doesn't want to do is, kind of separate people based on skill. It's very much a mixed and diverse tournament, but I thought it'd be helpful if we just showcase their previous SCL rankings, so you guys get a good idea of the kind of cross divisions games that we've got going on tonight. Particularly when they're from Challenger, which gives you an idea of how new they usually are. Yeah, absolutely. So we got DBD spying first here on Ballroom. Yeesh sniping, kicking us off with our first game. Let's get it done in 3, 2, 1. Looked like he was going to go for a bug very early there, warning track, but decided to hold off.
It's a pretty good opportunity, but Yeesh knew, like a good sniper, knew it was a good opportunity and was pretty much staring it down. Ballroom's quite an interesting map. There's so many ways that you can look for a mission complete. We are going to get our flirt at statues, at middle statues as well, meaning that we can potentially get 3 inspects, but Yeesh is an etiquette sniper, and it's not someone you want to kind of test when it comes to animation cycles. Yeah, absolutely not, especially in the first game like that. You don't want to make this easy on him. Does look like we're going to respect the rules of SpyParty. A double cycle, 2 inspects does mean we have to revisit. Jumping into the conversation with the Ambassador and our seduction target. Could look for a double whammy here, but Yeesh is currently watching it. Oh, there's the bug. I think Yeesh may be over that. Yeah, it is. Shot coming out. Wow. A very impressive shot. Not a bad bug. Even zoomed in as Yeesh was. There was sort of a broken animation there, but it almost looked like a red flirt into bug. Almost like framing your seduction target simultaneously while getting a hardtail done. I think actually just a really good bug, but Yeesh was just too suspicious of the possibility there. Like I mentioned earlier, staring down a good bug opportunity. Same thing here. A sniper knowing where they will be weak if that's the spy, waiting for it to happen just in case. Yeah, and when the bug happens, you can kind of just see right towards the start of it, her hand around this area just pops out. Well, it's not that area, but pops out and Yeesh is over that. But I think the one thing that actually kind of gave Yeesh the suspicion was actually the flirt at the statues right at the start of the game. A really long pickup. Often when there's another character at statues, snipers, especially etiquette snipers, will kind of trigger that as suspicion, and then from then on you have reason to watch them a little bit more closer. Yeah, a second statue visitor next to a first one in the first few seconds of a game. It almost seems like that standard script where you want to get your flirt in immediately, because that's what you want to do in almost every one of these games, but your ST somewhere like statues, and you just sort of do it anyway, right? Even if maybe you weren't planning to go to statues earlier. And from that point on, as you say, if you're already watching them, much easier to catch something like that bug, even though it was a pretty good one. Let's get into Yeesh's spy game here on Ballroom. Counting us in 3, 2, 1, playing it. And you have to remember,
This isn't like SEL where you play your doubles and then you play your singles. In the Summer Cup, you play your one round on each map and then you move on. So your spy rounds are even more important. You don't get a chance really to figure out your opponent on each map.
I think it also incentivizes kind of crazier low light strategies. You know, if you want a low light for something sort of aggressive, you don't have to worry that they're going to look at the replay and potentially you'll have to mix it up in the next game, for example. You can pretty much do whatever you want in any of these games.
Well, starting us off very simply here, Warning Track, it's a green flirt onto our seduction target for 51%. I feel like Yeesh is the kind of player that will pull out crazy strats here and there, but on Ballroom, starting things off fairly simply.
Yeah, don't overthink it, especially with that first green. And if they can timer flirt and have it done early on in Ballroom and then pick your spots for the hardtail and the other missions, all the better. What I want to see about Yeesh here is whether or not they just sort of take this opponent, you know, a little more seriously maybe than they were planning to based on that early start. Again, they caught the bug, but right off the bat, you just get the feeling that DBD kind of knows what they're doing.
Well, that's 2 attempts at a bug and 1 succeeding there for Yeesh. Finally gets it as he goes past the Ambassador on the second time, and so far from DBD, no highlights or any visual indication of suspicion. So Yeesh potentially got away with that. Oh, but the transfer of microfilm definitely did not get away with that one. And the shot does come through for DBD.
Yeah, I end up saying this a lot. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but the thing is, when you don't see any reaction, it means one of two things, right? Either they missed it completely, or they're almost positive, and they're so positive they don't have to bother highlighting and low lighting. We actually can't tell which it is. They might have just caught the microfilm there, but you also wonder if they were staring down that microfilm because at least, perhaps, saw the bug path. And from the sniper's cam, the bug really wasn't visible. The pillar was partially obscuring it. Excellent bug by Yeesh. But you get to a certain level, we say this all the time, you notice the path sometimes more than the bug, and sometimes that's enough.
Well, that's going to be Ballroom tied 1 apiece for both these snipers, both these competitors. Moving over to Courtyard swiftly, as per, is going to be DBD spying with boots. So let's count it in. 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, it feels very strange to be on another map already, but I like it. I like the variety that the Summer Cup provides.
And when I played my Summer Cup earlier this week, it was definitely kind of scary how fast the series progresses. It's an 8-game series during these group stages, so you really have to be on top of every game.
Yeah, that's actually how the SCL was not too long ago, and a number of people, myself included, lobbied to have that increased because really, already some of these matches can turn on such marginal things, and in only 8 games, you know, you literally just drop 1 or 2 sniper games and it's over.
DBD gets 30% flirt to kick us off. We're flirting between an AI here. Queen's currently just creating a bit of a buffer. Yeesh is the kind of sniper that I know will pair seduction targets where possible, so it's always interesting when you kind of throw him a curveball by flirting between or having an AI between you when you flirt with your seduction target.
Banana bread.
Yeah, the visual separation alone.
Going to be a contact. 2 lowlights Yeesh takes. Fairly good for Courtyard.
It is, but they were both highlights too.
That could be an issue playing it forward. One thing that Challenger players on Courtyard have definitely struggled with in the SpyParty competitive league was their flirt progress. So far we've got 61% and a contact, and we've got a minute and a half to play.
Yeah, that is something that definitely gets easier over time, just with raw game hours, raw number of games played. Even if you have a lot of game knowledge and skill early on, that timing in the back of your head, the sense of forward progression, is something that becomes second nature after a while.
A third flirt, popping us up to 78%. It was quite a long one, and it was a white test at that. Is this a bug? DBD currently moving towards our ambassador here, watching him. Oh, it is an attempt. Wrong arm connects. Yeesh, I think's over it, and he will take the shot.
That's pretty cheeky. That bug was so front and center that it's almost... The only logic to doing that bug really is, who would bug here? There's no way they're going to be looking for a bug here because it's so counterintuitive, so exposed. And, you know, you can theoretically defend that kind of bug or that kind of swap or that kind of whatever, the in-your-face version of it, based on the idea they won't be looking. Theoretically, you can always justify that. But that's what you're banking on at that point. You're basically saying, I think they're actually going to be a good enough sniper that they're not going to look at the thing. It's kind of the opposite of what I mentioned earlier. Yeesh staring down the Ambassador early in the game specifically because they were vulnerable. This is the inverse of that. This is maybe they won't be looking at the Ambassador because they're not vulnerable.
Well, unfortunately for DBD, it wasn't to be in this circumstance. Yeesh now playing a red dress may have a chance to snipe the first spy game of this series. Let's see if he can do it as we count it in 3, 2, 1, playing it. This is the thing I'm super excited for, Warning Track, is how Yeesh kind of tries to invent his own courtyard meta.
Yeah, mix up the standard playbook, as it were.
Ambassador walks past us, not going for the bug, probably for the best. That's going to be our second flirt here in a conversation with just a seduction target, right up to 62%.
Yeesh only lost one courtyard game in SEL Season 3 as sniper, although that was on the old art courtyard for what it's worth.
How different would you say old art courtyard is to the new art variant?
It's actually less different than almost all the other old art to new art conversions, I would say. It plays very similarly. The most significant difference is probably the removal of the courtyard bump, which is a small pathing, not quite an anti-tell, but a tight turn that some AIs were able to do around the statue in the center that was difficult for the spy to replicate.
Yeesh does a fake banana bread here. I don't believe the double agent Sunshine does. We've completed our flirt. Potentially we're trying to lower suspicion or frame someone who's been to statues. 2 highlights, Bling Twin and Walt Disney, both in conversations with double agents. And just watching DBD's sniper cam, he is paying a very lot of attention to, you know, the drink takes by these 2 highlights.
Now, he doesn't have a lot of progress here, but I'd be surprised if he timed out. He played 5 Courtyard 2 games in Season 3 SCL. He won 3 of them, all of them mission wins.
That was a time add, a white test. 45 seconds added both to the sniper and the spy clock. No indication that DBD has seen the time go up yet. Here comes the real contact of the double agent.
Banana bread.
Just as Smallman takes a drink as well. Not many lowlights available, but Yeesh gets bumped up to a highlight.
Now, 3 different people got bumped up, and they were all highlight for possible real BB, but they're mixed in with highlights for other reasons. So you've got to wonder whether or not the highlight strategy is going to work here. You have to remember which are which now.
Yeesh heading over to the statues. Could be a opportunity to inspect swap. This statue does have a fingerprint on it, though. Let's see what Yeesh's plan is. The inspects have come through the fingerprint as well. Yeesh may just look for a second fingerprint. Let's see if the ambassador can give it to us. Briefcase is on the floor by the looks of it. He's going to go over to it.
Yeah, the plan may have been to swap, and maybe that was a discovered fingerprint that changes the plans at the last moment.
Fingerprint has been completed. The briefcase has been messy. So far, DBD not wanting to shoot. 2 seconds, and Yeesh is going to find the first spy win of the series.
Yeah, I don't think that was being just tracked particularly well. I think there was a significant misstep there to mix pre-existing highlights with real BB highlights. The whole point of highlights in that scenario is to use them to track something so you don't have to remember. If they're tracking more than one thing or not used for general suspicion, then you have to remember anyway, in which case, why use them for both in the first place?
Pretty nice stuff for Yeesh, and unfortunately for DBD, we're on to Library. No chance to get your own back on Courtyard. You have to do it on a new map. DBD going to be kicking things off as Bling Twin by the looks of it. It is. Let's see if he's got the what he needs to do here on Library. 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, you might as well throw everything you have at them here. Again, they're not going to get a chance to notice what you did on the replay and then prepare for the next game on the same map.
I feel like Library is the kind of map that really separates a good player from a bad player. Wow, DBD having a bit of trouble pathing into the conversation. Yeesh interprets it as AI movement and throws a low light.
It's one of the funniest things consistently year over year playing SpyParty. You have a weird path, a weird collision, and you have to play that mental game. Highlight or low light? Am I a huge suspect or have I been completely ruled out? You sometimes can't tell the difference. It can be very marginal.
And I feel like if I was in DBD's position here, I would be thinking big fat highlight, because I knew I failed getting into the conversation. It's the difference between I know that, Yeesh doesn't know that. He just thinks I'm a silly AI. Transfer microfilm, Yeesh is watching it. Despite the low light, going to take the shot.
Well, and that's actually a key difference too, by the way. Things that you know might get you a low light and things that you can't possibly guess, because if you can't possibly guess, you might act like you're a highlight and you might not get anything done. Turns out that wasn't the case here, though. Just not really bothering to look at anything else, actually watching a low light, as it seemed almost, very closely so that they could see the microfilm even without the highlight there.
One thing that happened here that kind of makes the microfilm even easier for Yeesh to spot is a animation break at the bookshelf. It's very visible on the sniper cam, essentially starting the microfilm mid-animation, and it just kind of forces the sniper to look at it. You notice the hand on the book as Yeesh kind of puts over, snaps down, and then down to the chest. And so for Yeesh, an etiquette sniper who's watching animations time and time again, he's going to see the page read cancel and think, hey, that looks like a microfilm.
Yeah, I actually wonder, by the way, if you figure if that low light was legitimate, what's he doing so long over at that side of the map? I actually wonder if maybe he was sort of whipping back and forth to try to bait a bug or a purloin attempt out of the other side of the party and just happened to catch the etiquette break that you mentioned.
Very possible. Yeesh now spying, playing Pencil Stash, Walt Disney, Andrew Ryan, many names for Mr. A. Let's get it done. 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Rhett Butler for me, because I'm old.
Yeesh, attempting a bug as he walks past, picks up a huge highlight from DBD.
Yeah, I don't know how visible the bug was, but going into a conversation and immediately leaving, certainly something I noticed there. Got to imagine that DBD is already all over this.
One thing that's always troublesome is when you highlight someone early for potential bugs that you weren't really sure about, and then you forget about what the highlight's for. You just allow them to kind of move around the party for a whole 2 minutes.
Especially on Library. There's just going to be so many discrete events in Library that it can feel like a lifetime when you get down to a minute left after 3 or 4 minutes have passed, even, especially if there's a time ad, and you have to try to remember what you highlight someone for at the beginning of the game. And we mentioned earlier, DBD was mixing highlights of different purposes. There's a lot of highlights here already, some of them for statues, some of them for possible bugs. That could get out of control in a hurry on a map like this.
Yeesh chasing his seduction target all across the map. Going to pick up his second flirt, 68%. This is the second time that Yeesh has been seen standing on a pad with Cowboy. That's the potential to pair. We'll have to see if DBD's watching for it. Oh, wow. He's just going aggressive for the flirts. Third time's a charm. I know I would be suspicious at this point.
Yeah, well, I think he might be saved by the fact that there really are all those highlights. I believe one of the twins went from one side statue to the other in the same set and is done with inspects now, too. This actually is a very active party that could save Yeesh.
Lots of highlights, as you say. 5 highlights so far. Mostly statue visitors. Yeesh is one for a potential bug. Here comes a real contact of the double agent. Going to wipe out 2, potentially 3, maybe even 4 of our highlights if we're really lucky. Yeesh slamming the book into the yellow. Was spotted. DBD's all over it. He's going to take the shot.
Yeah, he's got it. He almost didn't bother to take some of those lowlights, it looked like. I think actually he might have been really on him from the beginning there and was maybe just hedging his bets for a while. Good shot.
Let's watch this bug back from the sniper cam again so we can get a good understanding of exactly what DBD saw. Yep, you see Yeesh kind of stopped to allow Kane time to reach him, and then the arm flies out as he spins. I think that you're probably right there, just highlighting for the sake of highlighting, but the bug was pretty much seen.
Yeah, a little more obscured than it would normally be because the jacket colors are similar. The jacket colors are similar to the wall in the background, and it was also chaotic. I really think the entry into conversation and then immediate leave was, well, at least for me, much more noticeable.
Well, we are switching it over to Pub. Pub going to be the last map of this series. A reminder, we'll go over it again when we start the next one. Summer Cup, you play 8 games on 4 different maps during the group stages, and everyone plays on the same maps, makes things very even. Is going to be Pub, as DBD is going to play a bit of Mr. A himself. Let's get it on. 3, 2, 1, playing it. Tempting bug in the chaos, but DBD restrains himself.
Well, he's gotten a little look at what Yeesh can do. Maybe realized, just because it's a good bug attempt doesn't mean I'm going to get away with it.
So many snipers would have shot Smallman then and there for the hand idle animation where next to an ambassador just looks like a bug to so many players, especially the ones that think Smallman is the most suspicious character in SpyParty. Yeesh was pretty restrained. I think one thing that etiquette snipers do well is know when a bug is a bug and an idle animation is not.
Well, right. If they're going to be good etiquette snipers, they have to study those idle animations. And there are characters like Smallman, like Morgan, for example, where sometimes their idle animations have them leaning significantly, putting their hand out, gesturing, gesticulating suspiciously. And if you don't know them, they're going to look awfully close to bugs.
DBD picks up a highlight for the fingerprint that he received at the bar. He's looking to rejoin the conversation with his seduction target here, Kane. Is on the other side of this circle, but the benefit of being in this circle is that the double agent is also here.
And the circles on pubs sometimes very small. Even standing across from them, it's not like standing across from them in library or courtyard.
I'm not entirely sure if that was a idle break. If it was, Yeesh potentially seeing it.
He might have left a little early on the empty conversation too. I don't know if he's aware enough yet, but against Yeesh, you got to be very careful about how often you put yourself in those kind of positions. The sip break, I think, yeah, stop talk.
100%, yeah, a sip break there. We've delegated to Mr. M, the plane twin, who's about to take the guest list, I believe, for us just after Rocker. If it doesn't expire, it does, so that's going to be the attempt at delegate not being achieved. Stepping into a conversation with our seduction target, we've achieved our flirt mission here. Seduce has been completed. 1.5 minutes to find a fingerprint and 2 more missions. Yeesh saying in the chat that he's pretty suspicious of the potential delegate, but it hasn't come through, so now you have to start looking at different targets.
Yeah, see, that's the thing about etiquette, right? If they catch you on something like that, they can just start staring you down. And one thing you notice is that when you suspect someone of being the spy, it's actually shocking how obvious they seem all of a sudden once you're actually watching them. It's not actually that we're subtle spies who are hard to notice when they're looking at us. What wins you games as spies is the bustle, the activity, the other people acting as human shields to distract. Without that, there's no hope.
That was 100% an etiquette break. Many of them in that pub game, and seems like Yeesh had finally enough of the rule breaks this time. The etiquette break being arriving at conversation and then immediately sipping during your idle animation, which an AI will never do.
That's a good way to put it, had enough. As any good etiquette sniper will, I think, tell you, you really don't want to be shooting for these things. They're very subtle. You can't always be positive you saw them, and they're not missions. So better to wait, better to obscure why you shot as well in a competitive setting. But if there's so many and it gets near the end of the game, at a certain point, maybe you just shoot anyway after they've accumulated.
I definitely feel like in my games, I like to kind of make a point of shooting for the first one I see, if I'm very confident, just to to kind of strike fear into my opponents. But here, Yeesh a little bit more patient than I am on the sniper role. Now has a chance to close this series out with a spy win. Currently 5-2. It is the last game. Let's get it on. 3, 2, 1. Playing it.
That's a valid strategy too. Strike fear, as you say. But if you're not going to shoot for the first one, I guess at that point your next option is shoot for the 7th one.
Just being kind. Is as you would put it.
Yes.
Yeesh goes straight to the bar, picks up a drink for himself. I don't know if he actually selected the delegate option whilst he was there.
Really no reason not to. But if you're positive you're not going to, I guess there's no harm.
Going to be a lot of idling unless we want to go for a bug here in the far conversation. Ambassador will be forced to leave this conversation. We have triggered his personal space meter. There he goes. But we also delegate to him at the same time.
That is interesting and counterintuitive. We saw a match kind of recently, I think we were both spectating it, where someone delegated to an SDA and got away with it because of that, because the sniper knew they couldn't be the spy and therefore was not expecting a delegate. But this one, obviously deliberate.
What happens when you delegate to the ambassador, they arrive at bar and then their personal space is violated? They go straight back to bar, and are they going to take the guest list still? I guess we'll find out. No, we won't. The delegation purloin timer has expired. Thank you, Tex.
He ruins everything. Does create another fingerprint opportunity, though. That might have been the whole idea there. He went to get the briefcase right afterwards, try to get a hard fingerprint, and miss the action test. I think maybe the plan would have been to go to bar right afterwards and finish that mission up.
That makes a lot of sense. Make sure that you get fingerprints going for yourself. Though I think that if it wasn't for Cowboy's position and the Ember getting nice and snuggly, then there would have been a case of the guest list would have been stolen. Yeesh,
Yeah, and
starting for really late.
I kind of like the idea, too, of purloining right after there. Or rather, I should say after the purloin, getting the print right afterwards. They're reacting to the purloin, maybe a little less likely to notice that you just finished up print.
That's a time ad, green, so that means that the sniper's clock is now slowed down for the next minute and a half as the 45 seconds is added to the spy's clock. I have to see if DBD has spotted time going slowly. He didn't notice the white time ad on Courtyard, which has me believing that he probably won't notice this green one.
Yeah, probably not. Yeesh there wisely elects not to try to fit into that conversation. That usually doesn't go well.
I feel like he's trying to path into it, but very quickly knowing when he can't and not forcing the issue. The Ambassador walks a wide path around us. Normally this spot really good for bugs as the Ambassador walks in, but unfortunately for Yeesh, he got unlucky. Gonna add time again, another green test.
Yeah, and I think he broke an idol in that empty conversation, probably correctly assuming that someone who's breaking that many animations on the spy side, probably not looking for them on the sniper side.
And get a little bit more dirty when you don't think that the sniper will shoot you for it. Ambassador walking past us. Not an attempt at the bug. We're going to go into this conversation with our seduction target. We've got a whole minute and 45 seconds. Sniper clock is currently showing 48. You have to feel for DBD. He's potentially getting a little bit antsy.
He is, but I don't know. I just don't think it looks like anyone can finish. There are a lot of highlights, but they seem very rote, and pretty much everybody is outside right now. So I still think Yeesh is going to need a little help to induce a shot here.
Standing inside the conversation with the double agent, all of our highlights have just moved into one conversation. Unfortunately for us, there is no suspected double agent in there. It looks so good to Yeesh, but it's just very unfortunate. The contact does come through. Oh my goodness, that's a shot. Straight onto Cowboy. Feeling antsy indeed. DBD was not waiting around. Only one highlight in the conversation with contact. He goes for it.
You're absolutely right. It's actually very counterintuitive. Yeesh obviously wanted him to shoot someone and sees a very full conversation, as you mentioned, naturally assumes there's probably an SDA in there. We both know there was not, so that's bad luck. But it ends up working because, as you mentioned, there is a highlight in the other conversation, so it actually looks more like a desperate banana bread to finish for Cowboy.
There was almost a moment where I thought, how does DBD know Yeesh's general as the crosshair kind of grazed over general's body to Cowboy? That is Yeesh taking the series 6-2, completing it, meaning that he takes, I believe that is 3-1 is how it looks on the scoreboard. Essentially, you either... No, it won't be 3-1, it'll be 2-1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You sweep,
I believe you're right.
then you take a point, essentially. Either way, yes. It's really strong for Yeesh. It puts his point differential at 12 points. Nope, that's not right. He's already played his second match. That's a lie.
Yep. Yeesh, obviously, the defending champion, starting his defense very strong here, showing why he was able to win last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So his points is at 6, point differential at 4. And score at 3. Essentially, it's kind of replicating a football style structure, so that when if tiebreakers do come through, you kind of have a way of breaking them very easy in the group stages.
Yeah, it's an interesting little wrinkle. As I mentioned earlier, I really like the format, and boy, just impressive stuff. I think DBD actually played reasonably well. Seems like a pretty solid player, but getting paired with a defending champion right away, that's a little rough.
Absolutely is. Going to be jumping into our second matchup here.